Welcome back to the Andrea Giovino Show. I'd like to thank all the subscribers. Thank you, Jesus, for giving me this platform. Toby TNT is here with us, and George Martorano. And today, we're going to talk about a very hard topic for me because he was a very dear friend of mine for 40 years. And I spoke with him right up until he passed, 2 weeks before he passed, Mark REITER. Mark was, back in the 80s, considered the King of New York. That basically they made the movie based upon him, the King of New York. And why? Because he was a major heroin trafficker. But Mark got sentenced to life in prison and life without parole. When he was sentenced, I had went to the court, and I remember he was going through his case and all, and I went and see him at the courthouse, and I was speaking to him back then also. And he very much accepted his sentence. He accepted his sentence where he knew he was doing life. And the reason I wanted to do this podcast is because I feel that when the laws changed and they started letting a lot of people out that had done really heinous crimes, more so than him, and I'm not justifying what he did, but people were let out that did numerous murders, and then he was told, okay, he had a shot at getting out of prison about 3 years ago, and he was hoping to get out. I was praying constantly he get out so he could spend some time with his family, with his, you know, he was very remorseful. He was very apologetic to me. I mean, I visited him many, many times up at Allenwood Federal Prison and in Pennsylvania, and he was a different person, very humble, very sorry for the wrongs that he's done, and just wanted to be out, to be with his kids, his grandkids, his ex-wife, to show them that this is the person he is. And so much so that I even put him in touch with some very well-known producers that I worked along with Netflix, because they're so interested in Mark REITER'S story, because Mark REITER has an amazing story of where he came from and where he's at and what he had went through. He was the only Jewish guy that was so highly respected, and I've seen the respect that he was given, not only back in the day by Gotti and a lot of those people. I've seen it and I've witnessed it. Even when he was in prison as an older man, I was sitting in the visiting room, very impressed with, say, these young 30, 35-year-old guys were visiting their uncle or their father or whomever, and they would come over, and I witnessed this. Hey, Mark, I heard a lot about you, and shake his hand. And even the guards told me that everyone respected this man because he was a man's man. He never believed in cooperating. No matter what people tell you or what other podcasters tell you, I knew him very, very well. And some people say, I know Sammy put something out there that, he was going to cooperate, but there were threats on his family. That's not true. He would have never cooperated, and there was never no threats on his family.
Let me jump in for a second here. So, for a few different reasons. So, one, let's back up for a second. So, you mentioned other podcasters. Mm-hmm. Something I wanted to clarify, because a lot of people and a lot of these podcasters, they talk as if they know.
They don't.
And here's the thing. And I know you've spoken to Mark, George.
Numerous times.
She was good friends with Mark. I've spoken to Mark. It's to my understanding, anybody that's doing a podcast, you're the only one. Let me make this clear, because I spoke to Mark. You're the only one on a podcast that he was actually speaking to.
Absolutely. And trusted.
That's number one. Number two, I understand he was a friend of yours, and we all like to see redemption. I would have liked to have also seen him get out in terms of, is there redemption for this man for the crimes
he did his redemption by being in there.
Because there were so many years in prison that he did.
Yes.
At the same time, you know, a lot of when you live and you enter into that street life of organized crime, of drugs, narcotics, heroin, you know, a lot of damage is done to a lot of people. There's a lot of dirt that's left behind. Okay, there's a lot of dead bodies potentially that are left behind. So someone could watch this and say, you know, what about all the people that died from heroin overdoses? What about all of the people that were killed in drug shootouts from organized crime? There is a flip side to this coin. At the same time, we do, and George, you know this, you spent 30 years in prison. You tried to reform men in prison. You tried to make a change in men in prison. But I'd like to also hear this from you and your perspective because, you know, look, we all spoke to Mark. She was good friends with him. At the same time, you know, within organized crime, there's a lot of backlash of people that got hurt throughout the years. So I kind of wanted to bring both sides.
I need to interrupt with that. That you're talking about everybody that does crime, people get hurt. Everybody that has done crime, people get hurt.
Well, the government tried to kill me.
I mean,
The government tried to kill me for no reason.
Like this is what.
And far as I know, well, no, I could see Toby's point because, thank God, you have a big audience. A lot of people viewing this. You know, there's not
two sides. There's two sides.
There's
to this
actually
coin.
three sides to every
Okay.
story. As far as I'm concerned, I think the biggest drug dealers ever were this family. They lived in New York. They controlled the OxyContin for years and made billions. And I don't know. They can't count how many people OD'd. Can't count. So, you know, there's three sides to every story for us dealing drugs. I was arrested on a Friday, and I came out on Dan Rather on a Saturday that I was a drug czar that got apprehended. And my friend Jerry Anjula, he passed away. He was the boss of Boston, probably the most richest mob boss ever. He was on a yacht. I think big as a city block. Okay? He got arrested on his yacht. He didn't make Dan Rather.
I mean, I just really want to focus on what this man went through, like how the laws were changed for other criminals that you know that you have said they let them out, and this man was kept in, and they didn't let him out. Not only hurt him, hurt his family by making them think.
Listen, no one knows better than me. But you got to understand, the system is so screwed up that the reason Mark didn't come home, he had a shot to come home. That judge wanted to see multiple signatures upon his release. He didn't have, just with me, you know how many signatures that the prosecutor had to bring to the judge?
They did, though. The warden did. You
don't, behind the closed doors. You know how many signatures behind the closed doors? The head of the FBI in Philly, the head of the homicide division in Philly, the head of the DEA in Philly. I don't know, the head of the dog catcher, So the judge would not move unless he's seen multiple signatures. They don't have the courage to sign one name and bring it up to a judge, which the prosecutor could have did with Mark. Mark didn't have multiple signatures. That's why the judge didn't go along.
I understand that, but the point I'm bringing out is that he paid his dues to society. He was there for 36 years, I believe.
They don't care, Agent. They don't care about that. They don't care. They worry about their life behind those judges, behind those prosecutors, closed doors.
But he never got in trouble. You know, he had a clean record. You make his family think he's coming home. He doesn't come home? Why didn't the judge just turn around and say, you know what? When they brought it to him, no. They made it linger on. That's just horrible.
That's the game. That's the game they play. There's somebody that didn't want to go along with it. They threw a wrench in it, and that's how it works. And like I said, he died terribly. died alone. He
You've
should have
spoke with him.
Yeah, he should have been in his house with his family. And the guy was ill. Wasn't going to go out and rob a bank. Come on. But this is the way they are. This is why this country is so screwed up. The justice system is so corrupt.
He was a totally changed person. He was not the person I knew back in the day. You know what prison does. It humbles you. It strips you.
Well, you know what the government told my lawyer? George has become too popular now. They make that sense. And we can't let him out because he's too popular now. Didn't make sense. That's what they told my lawyer. He said he's too well known. So my lawyer just said, well, what do you want him to do? Killing people in jail? Then you're going to let him out? No one in the history of federal incarceration has a record like mine. Nobody. But this is the way they deal with. This is what you're dealing with.
This is really, though, a topic of conversation where there really is a flip side to this coin, and that the true flip side to this coin is you have an individual that was a top John Gotti associate. He was for a guy that was not Italian. He was one of the top associates to John Gotti. Okay.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, the types of crimes and what he was sentenced for. Number three, the other side to that coin. Okay, this guy is older. He's not well. Is it time to let this guy out after spending 30-something years in prison for drug-related crimes? Let this guy out. I mean, just in a taxpayer standpoint, I believe it probably should have been time to let this individual out of prison at that point. But again, George, I see you sit here, I see you cringe a little bit because you spent 30 plus years or whatever it was in prison. But what is the right answer? So take emotion out of the equation. At the end of the day, there's laws, there's crimes, there's families that are hurt in certain situations, but there's also redemption. We also believe in redemption. What is the right answer at the end of the day when you're dealing with a situation like Mark Reiter had?
It's like I said, for him to be released, he had to have multiple signatures other than the prosecutor's office. He didn't get the multiple signatures. Somebody, one or two individuals were saying no, and the prosecutor wouldn't bring the papers to the judge will do what the prosecutor wants. Simple as that. And there wasn't enough people behind the prosecutor saying, yeah, okay, let him out. All they have to do is be one. That could be an FBI agent that was in New York. Right. Now he's in. Everybody that was on Mark's case had to be notified, and it could be agents who are retired now. One could say, no, I don't want him out,
and then that's it.
And that's it.
And that's what I think. That's probably what happened.
One individual.
But it's not just Mark. The whole family, everybody that cared about him suffered from that.
Absolutely.
It affected everyone. It affected his ex-wife. It affected his children. It affected his grandchildren. It affected everybody, that decision. Just to let him go home for a month to be with his family.
Family had to go pick up his body.
Yes. You know how hard hard that is?
The death certificate stated, I can bet you, stated that he did not die in prison.
No, he didn't die in prison. He died in the clinic.
Well, it was a prison clinic.
Yeah, prison clinic.
When they bring in the state, what do you call that? Morgue.
Oh,
what do you call that? Anyway,
the morgue.
He died.
The funeral director comes.
He died on his way to the hospital.
That's what they'll put.
I know what they put. No one has ever died in prison.
Point I'm getting at is that after that many years, you know better than anybody. I believe he did 36 years. You did 32. He's a completely changed person. Yeah, he did do crimes. Yes, I understand that. I'm not minimizing what he has done. Point being, at the end of his life, not just for Mark Reiter, I'm putting this out there for any human being, let him go home and be with his family. The family suffers also. The family suffered enough. Okay? So, he was very well respected in there and on the streets. As you know, he was a man's man. Everybody knew him. Everybody knew Mark Reiter.
It's just that I agree with 100%. It's just they look at it on the total opposite side. They don't like. I don't want to repeat myself. The judge wants to see multiple signatures to ask for his release. He doesn't want to see one signature. And like I said, like with my case, we talked about it before. One FBI agent stood. When you work for the government, 20 years you go. You got to retire.
Right.
This guy stood in almost as much time that I did. He stood 12 years over retirement. He did 32 years, and that 12 years was to make sure I died in jail.
Well, I believe
this is at their mentality.
I believe.
What chance do you have?
No, you don't. I believe. 3 years ago, it was in the paper that an agent that was on his case said, "No, don't let him out." That he was afraid. He was afraid for his life.
There you go. There you
the
go.
agent was. He's afraid for his life. The guy was in his 70s. What do you think he's going to...
There you go.
They already said he had major health conditions.
There you go.
He had no connections to nobody anymore.
There you go. And that's what's wrong with our justice system. The guy did not had to suffer like that.
He didn't deserve that.
Should have been home, passed away with his grandchildren
and his children.
Children around him. This is what they are. So all I can tell you, young people out there, if you're thinking about doing crime, don't do it. Don't do it, because you're dealing with an evil empire, which is our federal government.
And this is a guy that did 30 plus years in prison telling you don't think about doing crimes. It ain't easy to get around the federal government. When they want you, they have a pretty good shot at getting you.
But even up until the end, Mark always was pleasant, funny, worried about everybody else other than himself. He really did. He was like always cracking jokes. I spoke to him 2 weeks before he passed, and I knew that was going to be the last call. I can hear it in him. It was kind of like him saying goodbye. It was his last call, and he worried about his family, his ex-wife, his grandkids, his son, his daughter. You know, me, Andrea, how are you? I'm okay. What about you? Never complained. He was diagnosed with the stomach cancer, and he went within a matter of 3 months. He couldn't eat. He couldn't eat. He got to a point he couldn't even drink. And you go ahead and treat this person like this. And it was constant. The lawyer was bringing the information to the judge. You know, he's deteriorating. They signed off. He's terminal. Nothing. There's like no sympathy at all for even his loved ones to understand what this man was going through. You know, and like I said, just always caring about everybody but himself. And I said, Mark, worry about you. Like, are you okay? I'm going to be okay. I don't think I've ever met in my life someone as strong as him. So strong, like so inwardly strong.
Well, you know, he's a man's man. So many years ago, before he passed, he came to the conclusion that this is my life. This is life. You have to come to the conclusion, which I did, you know, life, no parole. You got to come to the conclusion, but I never complained to no one.
That's the thing. Like it's like I guess you become used to it.
George, I'd like to ask you, so like you just said, like life no parole, you know, what is that mindset at that point? You're in prison for so many years at this point. You're in there and you're saying, I may never get out. This may be my home. I may die here. Now I know you have a daughter that's out on the streets. You got what is that mindset?
I was the fourth person in America to get life no parole. It was the first person ever in the state of Pennsylvania. They wasn't giving it out then. It was too harsh. It was too cruel. They gave you life, but when you got life, even if you were a murderer, you were eligible to go to see the parole board in 10 years. That doesn't mean you're going to get out paroled, but at least you had that opportunity. Life no parole means you ain't even allowed in the room with the parole board.
And that's what he believed he had, life without parole.
So,
a life sentence.
You know, yeah, once you lose your certain amount of appeals, you know it's over.
He's come to terms.
What is that mindset like, though, I guess is the question I'm kind of asking. Like you just said, once you lose a certain amount of appeals, you know it's over. You're in prison, this is really your home, basically.
Well, with
every
me,
day.
I figured, well, let me help these other guys come home.
yeah.
And that's why I became
An advocate.
a prolific teacher. You know, you just make a life for yourself, and that's it.
Can I ask you this? When you would see through those years other guys go home, does it sadden you?
Excuse me.
Did
say
it
that.
sadden you? Like, did you?
Nah, after a while, you start, emotions go out of you after so many years. You don't have, basically, it's difficult for me now. I'm home going on 8 years. It's difficult. I have very difficult with relationships, with
It's got to be
just-
hard. Like,
yeah,
yeah, like
it's
how
very-
do you,
yeah.
how do you, like, you're absolutely right that incarcerated that many years, you're around men. That's all you're around is men.
yes.
So men are very hard to begin with. How do you come out and have a successful relationship with a woman when women are softer?
Yeah, I know. It's very difficult. I, crazy as it sounds, the only time I enjoy is when I'm alone, because all those years in solitary.
Right.
I mean, I have the best time when I'm all by myself. I just was down the seashore, Jersey seashore, and I stood by myself. So
Because you're used to that.
Yeah, but that's what they did to me. That's what they did to me. So, and like, I feel so bad for Mark's family. I mean,
I do. I feel bad for
feel
all
so
of
bad
them.
that they had to go pick him up. You know,
That
they had to retrieve his body out of prison.
Out of prison.
Even
when they
though
were
it was
all
a medical place, it's still a prison.
That's it.
It had wire fences around it. It had gun towers. You know, that was a prison. That's where they had to retrieve his body.
And you spoke with me on the phone with his son. He tried everything, that kid. He tried everything up until the end. He was his father's rock. That's Mark used to say, thank God for Michael. Thank God for Michael. That was it. And Michael stayed to the end, like the very end, always there, always there, always
Then
there.
Mark
Look at
had
what he
his-
went through.
Mark had his tragedies with his family while he was away, like I had.
Absolutely.
I mean,
The family has been through enough, and then to endure that.
right.
I
right.
pray for them all the time. I'm always praying for that family. That's all you can
Again,
do.
You know, I hate to say this, but it's going to happen again and again and again to many, and women too.
Yeah.
Women, you know, I'm a writer. I love writing. When I have the opportunity, I'm going to do a play. It's not in a different direction. I'm going to speak right now. A woman, she was very petite, and I got this right from the guards. She was in a woman prison at this complex I was at. There was many prisons there. It was a woman's prison. I don't know how she fell through the cracks, because when you go to jail, you go through a medical blood test, and she was pregnant. I don't know how she fell through the cracks, and she was such a. Get to the story. She died in a cell delivering her baby by herself.
Are you kidding
And
me?
she had no family. You know, the first thing happens to you in prison when you die. The first thing they do is look at your visitors list. See if people come and visit you. That's the first thing they do. See if you have any outside connections, because now they know how to deal with the legality. Then they look at your phone. If you're calling anybody. This learning from the guard, a woman guard, that I did research on the story. She had no visitors. She had nobody on her phone list, and she just died. Imagine that death.
That's sad.
Baby died. She died, and I kept following the story. Some relative that she never met, filed a lawsuit and wind up with $400,000
Wow.
and kept the money. So that's prison. That's prison.
Just talking about this whole subject, right? I'm just looking at you, watching your demeanor, knowing where you come from. I feel like just this topic of conversation literally is giving you anxiety and stressing you out. Just literally thinking about the set of circumstances that you've seen over and over again, not just talking about Mark, but for yourself, and then for other people that you've seen the same repetitive story over and over again. Is that an
Well, I've been
accurate
thinking
statement?
about Mark for months now with Andrea. You know, I do my contemplation in the morning when I work out. Now, let's imagine this now. He's in pain. He's terminal. And every morning he woke up and all he seen was four walls. That's all he saw, for four walls, until he died. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, I lived through it. You wake up and you see 4 wolves. That's it.
It's just sad. It's very sad. And I just wanted people to know how bad that was and what was done and how he was a man up until the end. A true, true man's man. Never complained. Never. I'd say, Mark, how do you feel? I'm fine. Don't worry. How are you? That's what he would say.
It's call and be. You live. He lived to be remembered.
Yes.
In the right light, as far as people like us are that know the streets. He's going to be remembered in the right light. In other words, when we go to dinner somewhere in New York, Philly, and his name comes up, it's in the right light.
It's always in the right light for him.
That's the most. That's to me. That's the greatest gift one can give to oneself, is to be remembered in a good.
He
light.
would never complain. How do you feel? I'm great. How are you? And I could hear that he was weak. He would never complain. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't, because I've never met anybody like that. You know, very strong. And I just wanted people to know, because a lot of podcasters put stuff out there like they make like they knew him and they say stuff, and they didn't. They didn't. They don't know. And, you know, how could you know? He's been in 36 years. How do you know him? Unless it's an old timer, and most of them are dead.
Right.
You know,
right.
I was younger 10 years from
well,
them.
you know, his co-defendant, Charlie, his nickname was Charlie Wings.
Right.
He did a lot of time, but he got out. He passed away when he got out. He went to South Florida, but he got out.
Well, so did Gene Gotti get out.
Right.
So did Johnny Cornelia get out. They all got out.
There was a funny case, though. If you know the case, the case, it was a crazy case. They brought in a retired judge, and because I was in them when they were going to trial. I was there, and I think Mark was on another floor, and the lawyers, he was so old that the lawyer, I think Jerry Shalgell, great lawyer, used to have to make sure he bought books. And he would drop the books to wake the judge up. So, I mean, what shot did they have? I mean,
yeah. So, all right, we're going to close out.
Right.
And
Mark, we got you.
yes. And we'll always keep you in the light.
Right.
We'll always keep you in our heart. You know, you're very dear to me. He knows that. A very, very dear friend. The family knows it was very dear to him, and him to me. You know, I tried to visit him as much as I could. You know, I tried to be there for him.
It's not easy. You had to drive a long distance.
I had to drive by myself.
You had to be aggravated, searched by the guards.
Oh.
It's not easy.
It wasn't easy. It was
Not
just
easy.
even like, you know, he would say if it was bad, don't come, don't come, don't come, you know. But to me, he was a good soul.
Absolutely.
He was a good soul. He made mistakes when he was younger, as many kids
anybody
make
said
mistakes.
something ugly in our presence, including my gentleman to the right, you know, they're going to get something that they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Thank you. Tune in. We'll see you next time.
God bless.
God bless.
You're fired, Toby.
That's it. I'm out.